I suppose you want me to do an intro, Jerry D, yeah? Do you
Yeah,
fancy an
yeah.
intro?
No, go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
okay.
need some light, Jonathan, by the way.
Do we need some light?
Yeah, you
Computer,
need
lights.
that stays in the edit.
Well, lads.
See, I can do that too if I wanted to, but I can actually ask the computer to do it.
Yeah, well, I have a button. Or, sorry, a tricorder. There we go.
Jeez.
That's terrible. Yeah, that's more like it. Right then. Hello, everybody. It's your old friends at Nerds of Us, and welcome to another episode of the Best of All Worlds podcast. Myself, Jonathan, joined as ever by the man to know, Jerry Soul, joining us from space.
Yes.
How's it feel up there, Jerry? You cold?
It's the first time I haven't felt fat because I'm weightless, so it's good.
That's good. That's a start, isn't it? You know.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You know, it suits you really. You know, you're enveloping. You're being enveloped by the space around you. It's really good. It's nice.
I thought you were trying to say I had my own gravitational field there, so I'll let you away with that one, Jonathan.
No, if that was the case, that the world would be orbiting you behind you, but that's not the case. Clearly,
how'd you know it's not?
Because it's not moving.
Because I know I'm the center of my universe. Yeah, it's not that funny.
Anyway, so we're moving on to the next episode of our Star Trek Watchalong. And in case you have been missing what's been going on, we are in the middle of our arc of original series watch-alongs. So, Jerry, we've already done two spicy episodes, which was Balance of Terror and the Doomsday Machine. And then moving on to perhaps one of the more spicier additions that they're keeping for this series. One that does have some very, very big consequences in terms of the wider arc of Star Trek.
We are all about the consequences, Jonathan.
We are. We love the consequences here, for sure. So yes, the episode we are going to be watching is Space Seed from the first season of Star Trek, the original series. It is the first appearance of Khan, which I presume is how his name is spoken now. Like, I don't think it's said anywhere else, is it?
I don't think so.
I think so. No. I mean, it doesn't seem right if you just say it normally. Like, yeah, it's like have to be at least 10 A's when you're saying that.
Oh, but, maybe 15.
15, yeah, that's a fair show. Can't be too careful these days. But yeah, exactly. So we are going to watch that episode and then give our thoughts on it in terms of, is it a cracking episode? Is it overhyped? Is it underhyped? We shall find out. It is the first appearance of Ricardo Montalban in Star Trek. Will not be the last, I can assure you. Although he looks quite differently in the movies, which is probably for the best in a sense. But we'll get to it when we talk about the episode. So, Jerry, are you ready to watch Space Seed?
I am ready to rock.
All right then. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's go. Ah, yes.
Lovely visual there. Lovely visual there.
Love it. Space.
There's something that never really talked about is the ambient noise on the original Enterprise set, like the beeps and I love it. Absolutely love it.
It's very much submarine inspired, isn't it?
Yes. I love the fact that if you go to Comic-Con, especially Dublin Comic-Con, and you've got the USS Cuchulainn there, you've got their bridge, and it has those ambient sounds and lights,
nice.
And the feel is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
That's great.
There we go. Oh.
Ooh. There's the Botany Bay, as seen here. Now, what I like about this episode is that it starts off the kind of the subgenre of like Star Trek episodes where you find something of our time and like kind of gawk about like, oh, look how old it is, but it's their own alternate history, which I like.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to like, you know, Tom Paris going like, wow, wasn't the 20th century fun, guys? No, it wasn't. Stop. We had 2 world wars, okay? Wasn't that fucking fun? I always think that we should act like a bonus point for whenever they say some sort of. Because it's very Star Trek, isn't it? So it's like, I don't know, it's some sort of gravitational field.
Absolutely.
Whatever.
Another point I want to make as well is that I just feel as cool as the captain's chairs have been in all the other series and the films. There's just something about the original Enterprise captain's chair.
It just commands the rest of the room, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like
then you've got that now in the new series, Strange New Worlds. It's going to be in that as well. And it looks great from the set photos that I've seen. It looks absolutely fantastic.
They've recreated that bridge really fucking well, I have to say. Very.
I love the fact that they've recreated it, but also updated it because it's 2022.
Yeah.
You can't have the same sets as 1950s. You just can't.
Yeah, it's like a more appropriate like Starfleet ship compared to Discovery, which is meant to be a concept essentially.
Yeah.
So like it's your stereotypical ship for that time as opposed to the new tech
There's one thing I will say about in terms of the scales of the ships. The original Enterprise, this Enterprise that we're seeing here now, is a lot smaller than, say, a Galaxy class.
Oh, so definitely,
It's only about the size of the saucer section in terms of overall length and whatnot. Whereas the Discovery is supposed to be bigger than the Galaxy class, and I don't agree with that. It's like they've got their scaling off. Very, very off.
No, doesn't look right. That's what you think.
Some form of heart action. Very slow. About 60 or 70 bodies as near as I can think of. Alien bodies. Sign of breathing or any other form of respiration. Hull surfaces pitted with meteor scars. However, scanners make out our name. SS Botany Bay. Then you can check the
as soon as you hear that name, Botany Bay, it just brings you to that scene from Watchalong. Botany Bay. Botany Bay. Oh no.
Yeah.
I love that.
Which is such a strange thing because like it's a bit of a misnomer because Chekhov wasn't on the ship at that time that we know of. He could very well just been a crewman, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I even love the nautical terminology. Rig for tractor beam. Rig for tractor beam. Love that.
Yeah.
But I love the fact though that they're saying that this is a really old Earth vessel from the 20th century. We only wish we had stuff as advanced as this fucking thing.
Sure, yeah. Like this is bear in mind still in the height of the space age, so they're assuming we would have kept pressing on about this when we really didn't. We kind of got like distracted with like real world shit as it were.
And the Russians.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to say it, Jerry, but I do genuinely love how he just hates transporters.
Yeah.
You just know that even in the 23rd or 24th century, you're still going to have old curmudgeons like him going like, I fucking hate them, fucking boomers, kids these days using fucking transporters and shit.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Again, the very first showing for me. I've never seen this episode before, so.
Yeah, I think you'd be intrigued. It goes places.
Definitely Earth-type mechanism, sir. 20th century vessel. Old type atomic power. Solid. I think they used to call them transistor units.
I love how he says bulky and solid, and it's the same fucking controls from the
control panel. Yeah. Sometimes this shit works,
Mm-hmm.
Fools. I mean, we laugh now. In about 5 years' time, Jeff Bezos is gonna make a sleeper like ship, and he's gonna conquer Mars with Amazon.
No, Elon Musk.
Ugh, fucking wish. I need to be off this fucking planet. Whoop.
Oh, he found the lights.
He did. Who knew it was just a button that was called lights? There he is.
Something, all right. Heartbeats increasing. Now passing 8 beats per minute. That's signs of respiration beginning. This one was probably programmed to be triggered first.
Oh, soft lighting.
Yeah.
Distracted.
Leader was often said to revive first. This would allow him to decide whether the conditions warranted revival of the others.
Heartbeat now approaching 40 per minute. Respiration pattern is firming up.
He's breathing.
Northern India area, I guess. Probably a sea. They're the most fantastic warriors.
Very rare mention of Indians in Star Trek, and there could be very good reason for that.
Heartbeat dropping.
Yep. If anything from the circuitry of the 20th century, dust just gets everywhere.
And debris.
Yep. This is not plexiglass, eh?
Come on, Jim. Get him out
Damn
there.
it, Jim. He's trying to communicate.
How long? 2 centuries, we estimate. Planning part of that price.
Go ahead, boarding party. We reach you.
Walk in on Dr. McCoy's beam. He's transporting back the casualty we discovered here.
Lieutenant, can you just please stop fawning over the frozen?
The music is making it sound very Doom-like, and the indication of that yet.
Yeah, it's ominous. It's like, oh, watch out.
In fairness, their ship does look as shitty as anything we have nowadays. In fairness,
yeah, it reminds me of it's like the Neutral Zone episode they did for Star Trek. It's the same kind of idea. So that's actually earlier, I think, or later. Can't recall. Later, actually.
Any records, log books of any kind? Negative, Captain. It appears they were in suspended animation when the ship took off. How many alive?
Strange kind of thing to add in there, Scotty. Fair enough.
72.
it's got to use a doorboard.
Yeah.
Discovered some importance, Mr. Spark. There are a great many unanswered questions about those years.
Here we go.
Violent period in your history. Find no record whatsoever of an SS Botany Bay. Captain, the DY-100 class vessel was designed for interplanetary travel only. Simple nuclear-powered engines, star travel was considered impractical at that time. It was 10,000 to 1 against their making it to another star system. Why no record of the trip?
I like those odds, Spock.
That was the name of a penal colony on the shores of Australia.
Oh.
They took that name for the vessel, suggesting this was a penal deportation vessel. Arrived at a totally illogical conclusion. Oh. Your Earth was on the verge of a dark ages. Whole populations were being bombed out of existence.
I mean,
Criminals could have dealt with far more efficiently than wasting one of their most advanced spaceships.
Not that wrong.
no.
Yes. So much for my theory. I'm still waiting to hear you. Theory requires.
Fuck you, Spock.
He's got nothing. It must hurt for a Vulcan to not know things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not capable of that emotion.
Bullshit.
My apology.
He's working with William Shatner. There's no way he doesn't know what irritation is.
I am the human version of sandpaper. My voice is like literal chafing for your ears. Pulse. I don't know why I did kind of love the display there. Just everything is just like bum.
I have to say, I love the fact that Khan is a big fan of Worf with his hair.
Yes, definitely. Clearly genetic traits.
I'm good, but not that good. Something inside this man that refuses to accept that. Part of it. Even as he is now, his heart valve action is twice the power of yours and mine. One efficiency is 50% better.
And here comes the horny historian.
That's what the eugenics war was.
This an episode of Star Trek or a fucking porno?
There's a lot of crossover, Jerry, to be honest. You can ask the historian there, I think. Excellent.
I have to say, a red shirt with ginger hair.
Yeah, double whammy. She's like double dead.
Not only does she not have a soul, she dies first.
Yeah, you know.
The fact that you find a man strangely compelling to you personally.
Not personally, Captain. Professionally.
Bullshit.
Yeah, me arse.
Find a specimen from the past alive. Sure that I would examine his mind.
And men were more adventurous, but both won't come.
Yes, sir, I think they were.
Good.
Also murderers, Lieutenant McIvers.
It's easier to overlook the step.
MacGyver.
Say, you happen to be relating relation to Richard Dean Anderson? No, Captain, that's a very strange question, but actually, yes, I am.
There.
Shut up, McCoy.
Oh, he's alive. And here comes the real Ricardo Montalban. Oh my God, he's using a strange technique called yoga.
Sit there to laugh. Anything new on the fire? We all came out fine, huh?
Weapons! Why is there a weapons board?
That's not weapons, you mad fuck.
To Khan it is.
Well, to Khan it is, yeah, but clearly it's medical paraphernalia.
I keep my finest scalpels here on this wall for everyone to look at. No.
Oh. There we go.
You could. Great little fucking scene there. Holy shit.
With the United spaceship and a British vessel is in town. Voice. Centuries.
for very good reason.
What is your captain? I have many questions. Bridge. I have a patient here with many questions. On my way.
And a scalpel as well. Did you also like Brave bring security? He does look like he actually looks genuinely impressive, doesn't he? Like he has that aura.
Ricardo Montalban, he's always been impressive.
I have a few questions first. What is your heading? Our heading is Starbase 12, planet in the Gamma 400 star system. Our command base in the second. Is that of any use?
No, but it will be.
And my people. 72, your life support canisters are still functioning. As soon as we reach Starbase 12.
In fact, he's just looking, he's just eyeing him up, thinking, how quick can I kill him?
What was the exact date of your liftoff? We know it was sometime in the early 1990s, but I find myself. May we continue questioning some other time? The facts I need, Mr. Khan, will take very little time. For example, the nature of your expedition, Jim. A little later might be better.
You're falling for the trick, McCoy.
Captain, I wonder if I could have something to read. I was once an engineer, so it's most interesting studying the technical manuals. Years of catching up. They're available to any patient on the viewing screen. I will show you how to tie in the library tapes. Thank you, Captain.
Red flag straight away, like.
Yeah, like you think somebody would catch on to this, right? Of course, I know they kind of reasoned it away, saying that they were a little bit more like braver and bolder back in the 1990s. You know, because I know when I wake up from a 200-euro coma, the first thing I want to do is slash someone's throat.
Yeah.
Estimate him to be a product of selective breeding. There is that possibility.
Is of course the eugenics wars.
In 1993, a group of these young supermen did seize power simultaneously in over 40 nations. Hardly super. They were aggressive, arrogant, began to that themselves because the scientists overlooked one thing: superior ability breeds superior ambition. It was true. They created a group. Alexander. I've collected some names. It's counts. By my estimate, there was some 80 or 90 young supermen. Counted for.
Aha. Funny how that works, isn't it?
That fact is no extra texts. Revealed to war-weary populations that some 80 might still be alive.
It's funny because like this is the only kind of real plot details you get of the supposed eugenics wars, you know?
Yes.
I am for your participation in my review.
Small.
I am reading up on starships. They have one luxury, no peace.
I don't understand.
The lighting does.
And you dirty bastard.
He's got the charisma. He's using his charisma powers. The
What's the star information about your ship?
wear your hair in such an uncomplimentary fashion. But it's not attractive.
Oh, it's starting.
Scoreboard.
Yeah.
Absolute dirt.
Pure filth. It's a strategically placed mirror.
Go. That's much better.
Yes, one curl.
Yeah.
You're on business.
So am I.
Yeah.
Just a scientist.
But the can, pleasure is business.
The world of the past. I'm sure you understand actually talk to a man of your century. At the time, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Shiny eyes. More shiny eyes. Oh, kawaii this one there. Ooh, McCoy's got his fancy jacket on.
Dress uniform.
Oh, look at you. Gold zips, is it, lads? Huh?
You
By
look at the
feeding him
doctor's gold
rhubarb.
zip, and then you look at Kirk's gold zip. Kirk's gold zip just happens to be bigger.
William Shatner insisted on a bigger zip. You know what they say about men with bigger zips?
Yeah, longer jackets.
That's exactly what I want to say.
MacGyver. I'm sorry, every time I hear it.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Now that is a fancy jacket.
That's a fancy fucking wig as well.
Mm. Ah,
Look at the hair. I'm sorry, no, they're getting dog points for that hair. My God.
oh, but look what she's painting. Emperors. Hmm. and me. So essentially, she has an emperor kink.
Yeah. Well, so do I, but it's because I want to be one. I don't want to be
of course,
one.
yeah. That's why Jerry, we haven't seen Jerry in 3 months. He's been playing Civilization for that entire time.
Yeah.
How does it feel being Alexander the Great, Jerry?
It feels great.
Great.
I really should have said it like Tony the Tiger. It feels great.
Great.
Adventure. There was little else left on Earth. There was the word's answer. That noble effort. Tyranny, sir? Or an attempt to unify the nation? Sir? A team of animals.
Oof.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I know something of those years. It was a time of great extreme aspiration. Under dozens of petty dictatorships.
Oof.
One man has grown Caesar. Think of its accomplishments. And your sympathies were with you are an excellent practitioner. To let your second in command attack. Sit and watch. You have a tendency to express ideas in military terms. Social occasion. Has been said that social occasions are only warfare.
I love this fucking back and forth.
You fled. Why were you afraid? But you left at the very time mankind needed Earth. We offered the world order.
I slipped up there.
You got it.
But if you will excuse me, gentlemen, ladies, I grow fatigued again. With your permission, Captain, I will return to my quarters.
I know it's a very small team, but the fact that like Kirk is wearing all of his kind of fancy badges as a bit of a power play.
Yeah. Oh yeah, traitor.
Besmirched. I also know it's a very small thing as well, but I do like the fact that Khan's like kind of gown there is very Indian inspired. It suits him in a sense where like they have kind of given him the clothing that he would wear, or at least something maybe he's picked out himself. I don't know.
I like it.
Alive. I don't know if you're going to like living in our town.
Then I'll have to remove it. Go. Oh, stay, but do it because it is what you wish. Well,
Stay a little.
how many minutes do you graciously offer?
I only met.
This grows tiresome. You must now ask.
Apparently, one of the great skills of the 1990s was gaslighting.
It was.
Yeah. He got banned a lot of places, unfortunately. Of course, in the 23rd century, gaslighting was outlawed as part of the Federation Charter.
Treaty of Algeron as well.
Yes, of course.
Just stop breaking me fucking hand.
Again, just if you wanted at least one sign that he's the villain of this episode. I've killed 4 billion people. What's another starship to me?
Go, I say.
Oh dear. That quick pre-dependency. Didn't.
We know him today.
Oh dear.
Name? From 1992 through 1996, absolute ruler of more than a quarter of your world. From Asia through the Middle East. Last of the tyrants to be overthrown.
I must confess, gentlemen, I've always held a sneaking admiration for this one.
He was the best of the tyrants, and the most dangerous.
They were Superman in a sense.
Stronger, braver, certainly more understood. Romanticism about a ruthless dictator is
Smart, we humans have a streak of barbarism in us. Appalling, but there, nevertheless. There were no massacres under his rule.
and as little freedom. Or
Mr. Spark, you misunderstand us. We can be against him and admire him all at the same time.
It's just a very strange scene. This is.
Totally.
Like I can see what they're trying to do. It's a case where like the power of like kind of like hindsight can normalize a regime like Khan's in a sense where like Khan's literally worse than Hitler in every possible category. So the fact that, like, if you weren't there, you weren't to know. So as time passes, it's easy to forget the atrocities and then remember what the history book was written as. But it is
now
bizarre.
He's wearing a fucking uniform. What the fuck?
Yeah. I don't think he just nicked it off a red shirt and like was he just too embarrassed to ask.
Unusual treatment for Khan Nooney and Singh. You identified me with your computer system. I'd like those answers now. First, the purpose of your start point. Chance to build the world.
You're getting sacked off. That's what you were.
Why? Because I'm not a product of controlled genetics. Captain, although your abilities intrigue me, you are quite honest. In fact, I am surprised how little improvement. Oh, take advancement. How little man himself has changed.
I know. We're still on 5 fingers.
Yes, it appears.
Until we reach warp 10.
Of course. And then
more fish.
Salamanders.
They all been asked.
Now, what happens in the second half of this episode, I think, can say monumentally about how Kirk, like, we'll have episodes where he's a great captain. In this one, he isn't, in my opinion.
I'd be taking it a bit too personal.
Maybe. He's doing acting.
Good luck.
I'm issuing a point for that uppercut. Oh. Oh, not the transporter officer. No. Well, that was uncalled for. How dare you get rid of a British guy like that? These are all the apparently emperors.
Only this time it's not the world who wins. It's the universe.
Again, I find it funny that how like the first 2 he talks to there is a German and a Spanish name, 2 fascist states at the time. Well, not in the 60s, but no, Franco was still in charge around this time. You think somebody would have noticed? Here we go. Shit. Uh-oh. It's almost like showing the schematics of the ship to a bloodthirsty dictator was a bad idea. A passcode would have sufficed, lads. Chops.
Good chop.
Wah!
Not all decks with hero gas. Control systems inoperative. Thorough study of our tech methods.
Again, I was Spock slightly saying, fucking passwords, people.
Negative. Academic.
Eventually. As the Captain Kirk squint when he's trying to think. He's like, boy.
Bye bye, Bonnie Bate.
Her is dead. Bye, her. Night night.
Come on, Jim, you can do it.
Yeah.
I take full responsibility. I take full.
Acting pratfall.
Nothing ever changes. Except that. Your technical accomplishment. Move the mechanical parts. They double. Pivot. But improve man.
Soft light.
Gain 1,000 points. Join. After you well. I need your training to operate vessels. Where is Captain Kirk? See now
I get the feeling Scotland wasn't one of the countries conquered by the eugenics.
Not at all. Well, as they said, he conquered most of Asia.
Yes.
So I'd imagine most European countries were off that list.
Possibly.
You leave her alone, you bastards. Kick his ass, US.
Yeah.
I should have realized that suffocating together, rich, would create heroic camaraderie. But it is quite a different thing to sit by and watch it happen to someone else. I'm sure you recognize your medical profession and the meaning of that.
It's got red on you.
Oh no.
Oh.
Upload 10.
Oh no, he's in the cube.
Your captain will die.
Fuck,
He's on a-
woohoo, I'm captain now.
Fascinating. I've never seen a man implode.
If you join, save his life. My vessel was useless. I need you and yours to select a colony planet, one with a population willing to be led by us.
Bullshit.
Conquered by you. Starship makes that most simple. Each of you in turn will go in there. Die while the others watch.
Fine. There's no reason I must watch the system.
But I hoped.
Bye, bitch.
Any one of you joins me. Anyone.
He needs the.
It's so useless. We've lost the channel.
Nice one, Joaquin.
How do I regain picture? It does not matter. Captain is dead.
Michelle, please.
Miss this one.
All right then. You do realize that Vulcans can survive vacuum for more than 3 hours. They don't know that. I shouldn't have said that out loud. Damn.
I said to watch him very closely and we decided to cooperate.
Boop. Beautiful.
And he's down.
And he's out. Slide.
Captain, I've saved your life, but please don't kill him.
Nah. I love that every single time there's always a music sting. It's like, yeah!
It's such a cop out at times, the Vulcan neck pinch.
Our only chance is to get through the control center. Otherwise, cut it off at the bridge. There's a relay junction down the corridor. Gas all decks, but this one.
Woo! Where we go?
Armory. This is time. Report. Rodriguez. Bing. McPherson. Anyone report status.
Oh.
Nigga!
Those guys just go fuck off. I find that so funny. He's just like, eh.
I don't know.
All sections except engineering. Someone just moved that line. I suspect this is Scott. Captain's headed for the engineering section. I'll put him in case. Negative. We must take the vessel by the anesthesia last. Meet me in the armory.
Action scene. They don't make them like they used to.
Oh.
I understood your manuals. That's an overlooking progress. Your ship flares up like an exploding sun within minutes.
Nope. And they're stunt actors.
Jesus. Did
Terrible.
they even try and hide it? Like,
No. Oof. Double axe handles. Yes. Oh.
Hurricane.
Go on, head scissors. Go on. Woo! Up your bio. It is nice to have a wide open space like this for some wrestling, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Oof.
I have 5 times your strength.
Yes, plastic will kill him. Yes. There's literally no weight to that at all. That's gas. And everything's fine. We got better.
Control of the Enterprise has been regained.
Ooh, fancy jackets.
My next decisions were no more difficult. Khan and his people. What a waste to put them in a reorientation center. And what do I do about MacGyvers?
MacGyver.
Gavers.
All right, Judge Judy, relax.
It's George Shatner.
Under the authority vested in me by Starfleet Command.
Now pronounce you man and wife.
You may kiss the bride.
Spot. I believe our heading takes us near the Ceti Alpha star system. 5 area is habitable.
City Alpha 5.
No more than Australia's Botany Bay colony was at the beginning. Those men went on to tame a continent. Can you tame a world? Have you ever read Milton? Model what happens. Given a choice, a court martial or a company. Struggle at first, even to stay alive. Fine. Superior woman.
As opposed to the other genetically superior women. But yeah, that's fine.
And I got something else I wanted. World win.
Hearing is closed.
Shame for a good Scotsman to admit it, but I'm not up on Milton.
Statement Lucifer made when he found it that it is better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. It would be interesting, Captain, to return to that world in 100 years. Learn what crop had sprung from the seed you planted today.
Oh, Mr. Spock.
It would indeed.
Quite literal Chekhov's gun there. Oh, yes. We have a lot to talk about in this episode, don't we, Jerry?
Oh,
Don't we just? Oh, it all sounded like such a good idea at the time. Put a horrible world, like suffering despot on his own planet. What could have possibly gone wrong? What could have gone wrong, Jerry? Where did this mistake start? Who could have seen this coming? Honestly,
not me.
not me. No
Not
one.
me.
No
Not
one
me.
even. No one even watching at home. No, see, don't, stop lying. You wouldn't have seen it. Shut up. Shut up.
Lad just having a clue.
He's talking bollocks,
Simple
right?
as that.
Talking bollocks. Right. Then. So, before we get into the scoring and the discussions therein, let's talk about our extras. So, we do have one ship to talk about in this episode, Jerry, and that is the DY-100 class, the SS Botany Bay, which I actually do have right here in front of me. Excitingly enough. Granted, it is missing a fin, but it's it's all right. It's intact-ish. You know, it's about as intact as can left it. To be fair, I find it weird because like the actual, I know they kind of fluff it up in the movies a bit, but like it didn't actually crash land on Ceti Alpha. I presume they have brought it to their like they refound the base and put everyone onto that ship, and that's what landed on Ceti Alpha. But we didn't see that, so we assumed as much anyway. So pretty much as we just heard there, it was launched in 1996, around the time of this supposed eugenics wars, and we can kind of take a lot from there of the proverbial Superman canon you see being the first last to fall. They're all shipped out into the into space on these on this essentially prison ship. And it's funny you should say it because I think in the Enterprise episode, the ancestors to Noonien Sung all say they thought like the Botany Bay was like fictional. They didn't think it was real, which I kind of find funny considering maybe you should have the kind of higher reasoning. You should be able to tell if it's real or not. But neither here nor there. But it's pretty much like a boat almost. Quite that's what it kind of looks like to me. Like it is kind of like a prison ship of sorts. It feels it, and it looks dingy and dirty and banged up. It kind of suits for me.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's not a very attractive looking ship.
No.
It is obviously they tried to make it look old, but obviously in today's standards it's extremely old. 70 or 60 years old now at this stage.
Yeah.
I don't like it at all, but you kind of you can see where they were going with it. It is gringy, not gringy,
Grungy. Yeah.
grimy kind of
Grimy.
kind of look. Yeah, I'm not going to score it very high. This is a raw recruit cadet for me. How bad it is. It's just not a nice looking ship, but that's exactly what they were going for. So they kind of hit the mark with what they wanted. But for me, it's just not a nice looking ship.
No, I agree with you on that one. To be fair, like it was a kind of case where you had it was meant to look unpleasant in a way.
Yeah,
it was meant to look old and janky. So it was a case of like when you do see the side by side of the Enterprise that looks so pretty in comparison, and then you see this like rust bucket fucking lining up beside it, you're gonna go, yeah, fair, that is almost certainly way out of time, but it kind of does a trick that way. And same way with like I'm reminded of the we mentioned the Neutral Zone episode, the same, that kind of like that cryo ship that was there as well, that looks so like out of place as well, so it does make sense. You kind of went for the same idea there, and yeah, I'm happy to go put in Cadet. I think I don't think anyone's going to morally object to that one, Hardy. If there's any Botany Bay stands out there, let us know and we'll ignore you in the comments.
He doesn't ignore you. He just cries himself to sleep.
That's it. I do that anyway whenever that happens. But yeah, not much else to say really about the Botany Bay. Obviously, it appears in the alternate timeline with Star Trek Into Darkness, which we will not be referring to in this episode, for obvious reasons, because it was fucking terrible, in my opinion at least. I don't know what Jerry thinks about it.
It's you've got two lovely ships in it, but that's about as good as it gets.
That's good.
The Vengeance class was fantastic looking ship. It's absolutely fucking huge. But again, it goes along to the lines of that Enterprise is a lot bigger than this Enterprise. It's along the same size, or nearly the same size as a Sovereign class, which is fucking huge. So if that's the case, if the Enterprise is along the same lines as a Sovereign class in size, how big was the Vengeance? Like fucking enormous. Like,
this is
like you're talking, it's big. It would be bigger than it would be bigger than a Romulan warbird, kind of along the lines of maybe in scale to the Scimitar.
Yeah, seeing that
absolutely huge, and had just as many teeth as the Scimitar as well. It had loads of weapons on it. She was definitely powerful. Definitely powerful. But yeah, that's about as good as I'm going to say about that movie. Well, you know, that and Benedict Cumberbatch is in it, and I really like Benedict Cumberbatch, so you know, you're not going to say anything against him.
No, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. Yeah, and like I said, we hear of it essentially in the other movie, but I don't think we actually see it. I can't recall. So yeah, it's as simple as that. So yeah, cadet class for the Botany Bay. So with that, then we have a very quick trip through the guest stars. Not much to talk about this time. One we'll get through very quickly was John Winston. He was the obviously Commander Coyle, the British guy. You know, always pops in every now and then. You know, to get fucking slapped around by somebody. You know, so he was in this episode as well. So we've seen him before. We can skip that one. So a few other kind of actors we can talk about then. First of all is Madeleine Roux, who played well, her real name actually is Madeleine Solomon, but she played Marla McGivers, who again has been a character actress who's been in tons of stuff, really. Again, a lot of like very much the kind of like the kind of Rolodex that Gene Roddenberry calls on from his other work. So she was in Gunsmoke, she's in From the Man from U.N.C.L.E., Mission Impossible, The Untouchable.
A lot of actors in those, when you see them in Star Trek, you tend to see them in those other productions as well.
Yes, absolutely. And she was in Bonanza, funny enough. And again, Small World Syndrome here. In the 1960 episode of Bonanza, Madeleine played the wife of Ricardo Montalban.
Oh, there you go.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is and again, they actually did after Star Trek, Roux and Montalban reunited a second time for an episode of Montalban's Fantasy Island.
Oh.
They're actually married. They're a couple in three different shows, which I find that's a serious level of Small World Syndrome there. And yeah, she's been in tons of movies. She was in I was going to mention Fantasy Island was one. Days of Our Lives and Fame, of course, soap operas. If you're into that sort of thing, Chips, she was in as well with Michael Dorn. But in 1977, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So she was confined to using a cane and crutches, a wheelchair, and that is actually the reason why she couldn't appear in The Wrath of Khan. So she was like kind of the character was killed off in that sense because she just couldn't physically act, unfortunately. But she still appeared in shows like Fantasy Island even after that. So she still was able to act a good bit, but I think her last role was in 1996, where she was in Murder, She Wrote, funny enough. So again, she's a wonderful career in that sense, and she died in 2003 because of obviously the sclerosis condition, at the age of 68. In terms of the Marilyn McIver's character, again, very much it means to an end. She was the ship's historian. Didn't really appear, as I believe, in many other episodes outside of this one. And as we mentioned, she had a kink for emperors, for powerful men. So that explains why she immediately fell for Khan, I guess. And yeah, not much else to say really in that. I don't think she actually appears in Into Darkness at all. I don't think she features the actual character, because I know they recycled a few characters from the original Star Trek, but I don't think she was involved in that. So
no, I don't remember. I don't remember the character anyway. No,
I don't think so. And yeah, like she very much just is in terms of the canon, she more or less is Khan's wife, in a manner of speaking. She doesn't get much else outside of that. So but I suppose if you want this, she is this historian, but she's also a control systems analyst. So she's an engineer at the same time. So that's something at least. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Elsewhere, then we have a couple other actors to talk about. First of all, some of the augments that were there. One of them was called Cathy, otherwise credited as Crew Woman, which I found hilarious. She was played by Kathy Ahart, who was actually died quite young, actually at age 34. And she basically did a lot of kind of commercials and modeling, as it were. And that's all the information I actually have on her from there. I'm not sure what else she was in. I shall consult the Oracle here, and actually he only has one credit to her name, funnily enough, and that is Star Trek. Nothing else really. So yeah, bit of a blank slate there, curiously enough. But there we go. Elsewhere, then we have a few kind of doubles. So again, because of the nature of the original series, we're not going to test you on these ones, but we have one here, an actor called Blaisdell McKee, who played in this episode, I believe, played Lieutenant Spinelli, who was the kind of the yellow shirt in the room. Essentially, he was the helmsman for the episode. And then in later episode, The Changeling, he was Lieutenant Singh, who was one of the engineering crew. So again, he was I believe he was Hawaiian. So he played a few kind of characters based on skin tone in Star Trek, which was often the case sometimes, where they need an Indian looking character actor, so they got him to be Lieutenant Singh or wherever it is, and go from there. In terms of his other work, he's been in, again, Mission Impossible, Hawaii, Big Valley. So again, very much from the Rolodex in that sense. And he, funny enough, it is a weird one. He started as the title character in Johnny Lingo, a short made by Brigham Young University, which has since become a cult favorite in Mormon cinema. Who knew? Yeah, I know. I'm as shocked as you are. He died in 1988. He was age 56, so another quite early death there, unfortunately. So that's Blaisdell McKee. Next up then is Mark Tobin, who plays in this episode Joaquin, who was the guy who backhanded Uhura. So he was one of the augments, and again, going by the name, I assume is perhaps the Spanish dictator that was meant to be there. Because again, there's a couple, they do explain that there's a couple of the 40-50 take, states essentially, and he presumably takes the Spanish one. So he is also obviously Joaquin in this episode, but he also plays as a Klingon in one of the later episodes, Day of the Dove. So you would kind of recognize him based off the Klingon kind of makeup at the time. Tan color, beards, wig, the whole trimmings. Uh, no expense spared, ladies and gentlemen.
Nope.
In that way, but yeah, he's taken a couple of kind of roles again, very much from the kind of the catchment that Star Trek have had. He was in Review, which is one of Lucille Ball's productions from 1959. He was also in Lock Up and Tombstone Territory, Little Abner, Man from the Diners Club, and McHale's Navy. So he was there as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Mark Tobin. And now we can take our time with this one, Jerry Soule. The last person we have to talk about is Ricardo Montalban.
Who?
Your man, Khan. Sorry, not Khan. Khan!
Who?
Your man, Khan, you know, the guy with the hair.
I don't know.
You do know. Stop talking shite.
Ricardo Montalban was a huge actor. Huge actor. To the point that he was James Bond villain.
Yeah.
You know, so that's how big of an actor he was.
It's such a curious thing. Like, I think it's because Ricardo Montalban has done so much work for the production company that did Star Trek as well. It's probably the only reason I would think that he was able to get them. You know, because it's solely a case of like his entire body of work would make you think that he's surely a bit too big to be doing a sci-fi pissy show like this, because sci-fi was still not really taken seriously in acting circles, you know. But like I said, he was. I think there's a part of it that actually really likes the Khan character. Like he likes the air that he has, the kind of the gravitas that he brings to all of his roles. Let's be fair, but like I said, where on earth do you start with him? Like, I mean, like he starts off in 1942. His body of work is incredible. Like I think he was still acting up as far as 2009. When like he was still acting, he was still appearing in things well after he died, which is exceptional. Actually, his final roles were on the Star Trek tributes on Family Guy. The first was the role of a cow in an episode of Family Guy, in which he parodies his Khan role by paraphrasing some of his lines from Star Trek 2. His very last role was that of General Pequeno in an episode of American Dads, which also featured Patrick Stewart. So yeah, the episode Moon Over Isla Island was like put out 9 months after he died, which is remarkable to think.
So yeah, that's mad.
Yeah. And yeah, like I said, like it's as you said, he's a former Bond villain, so that, you know, ties into it a little bit. But like I said, he appears in a lot of the shows that Gene Roddenberry and the Desilu production crew had a lot of work into. So Gunsmoke, obviously, Mission Impossible. We mentioned Fantasy Island a while ago as well.
Yeah.
And he's obviously the man from Uncle as well. Was in that, and the Untouchables, the Wild Wild West. Like, he's been in so many things. He's been a remarkable body of work that I'm not given like anywhere as much as credit for, really. But again, we'd be remiss if we weren't actually talking about his role then as reprising Khan in the movie, which I think, for me, and I don't know if this is the right time to have this conversation, he perhaps is the best villain to ever exist in Star Trek, perhaps even sci-fi full stop. It's very hard. Like, he is in that kind of pantheon of like all-time best movie villains for me.
In terms of singular villains, in Star Trek, definitely the best villain in Star Trek. You know, the arguments to be made, but I think in terms of singular villains, he would be the best. You know, there's a close second in terms of Star Trek would be Gul Dukat.
Yeah, in terms of body work,
he would be a close second, but in just in terms of how good they played their characters, Khan would definitely be the best. I think, anyway, the best Star Trek villain. I don't know whether he's the best villain in terms of cinema or TV or anything like that. There's definitely huge arguments to be had there, but we're not having them today. But yeah, no, in terms of Star Trek, I don't think many people would actually argue with you that there was a bigger villain than Khan. The only thing I will say is that he only appeared in 2 things, which was this one episode and the Wrath of Khan, and he was so good in the Wrath of Khan that he's actually been given that moniker of as probably being the best villain. But again, there's that argument that someone like Gul Dukat, who was so fleshed out over a whole 7 seasons, would be better. But for me, it's a thing where you look at, say, Star Wars, the mystique of what Boba Fett was.
Yes.
He was only seen in 2 movies, but for a total of maybe less than 10 minutes in total. But yeah, he had that mystique about him for so long. Obviously now they've answered that a little bit now with his own TV show.
Yeah, of course.
But when it comes to something like that, it don't need to be fleshed out over 7 seasons or 10 movies or anything like that. You could just do such a good performance in one 50-minute episode of one 2-hour movie that you're remembered as being one of the best villains of all time. So absolutely would agree with you there in terms of how big of a villain he actually is.
Yeah, like you mentioned Gul Dukat there, and it's very much a case of where it's almost like 2 angles, 2 ways of approaching it, where like Gul Dukat has a kind of the body of work to show how much of a villain he is. Like he goes through the kind of ups and downs of like certain like sympathies and like aspects to his character where you can understand where he's coming from. Whereas we can, as you said, you had a grand total of maybe 2 and a bit hours to try and get across, combined with the first episode in the movie, to try and get across how evil and how villainry like this character is. So there's no time wasted in the sense, like even from the first start, like when he wakes up, the first thing he does is have a fucking knife to McCoy's throat. Like there's no time wasted here, and the air, the charisma, the way he carries himself, and again he's like all of his roles in fairness, and it's just incredible the way he does carry himself, and how, as I said, like in this case of one episode of Star Trek essentially served for an entire movie, which is, you don't really see a one-to-one aspect like that, you know. I'm kind of trying to even think now, like something like First Contact, for example, would be the closest, and that's still an arc. That is the Borg being put into a movie. That's a body work in of itself between The Next Generation and Voyager, really. Like it's quite hard to find that kind of correlation where like one episode leads to a movie, you know.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. See, in terms of like, say, captains having their nemesis, Kirk had Khan. Yeah. Picard has Q. Yeah. Cisco would have Gul Dukat. Yeah. In terms of the other series, though, I don't see. You know, would the Borg Queen be Janeway's main villain? I don't know.
I think in the end it became that when it never was. Jamie never really had a villain in a sense, like a nemesis. Like you could have said that the Kazon was meant to be that, and maybe to a certain extent, maybe Chakotay would have been the adversary, like the kind of the adversary, but they just flipped the whole kind of relationship, and it was better off, to be fair. Like I mean, the kind of Maquis stuff dried up very fucking quickly in the end, but yeah, no, I see where you're coming from with that, and like I said, it is a kind of case where like for every Kirk needs a Khan, and like you have Ricardo Montalban there, you use them, and like you use them to good effect, which they did. So yeah, like I said, one of the most iconic characters Star Trek has ever made, and a lot of it has to do with the actor himself. Like that's for me an example of when the actor is applying his own skill set to a character. You know, you bring someone in to be almost for the sake of like, we have Ricardo Montalban, let's give him a character that leans into all of his traits. You know,
and he did that absolutely. From sexy to evil to arrogant. You know what I mean? He played it all.
All of it, yeah. So, with that in mind, then let's get to the spicy stuff, Jerry. Let's talk about scores. So, we start off as ever. We have all of our categories here in case you're new to the show, where we are going to break down this episode, analyze it, critique it, and discuss points awarded for each of the categories, and see will it top our leaders potentially. Will it be the best episode we've seen so far of the original series? We shall remain to find out. But let's start off then with the plot. So, Jerry Soul, this is your first time watching this episode, going in completely blind. What did you think of the plot of these episodes?
I thought the plot was good. It didn't give too much away at the very start. The music, as I said, made it seem more ominous than it actually was. But then obviously that's justified by the end of the episode. The plot I thought very good, and the fact that they found this Earth spaceship that is 200 years old, thereabouts. That it is, there's people alive on it, and they're trying to figure out, okay, well, why are they here? Where did they come from? What's going on? And as it unfolds to be Kirk's greatest nemesis, essentially. So all around, I thought the plot was very good. Obviously, when it comes to this, there are far-reaching consequences, but we'll get to that later. But the plot, I thought it was very well written. Very, very, very well laid out, I thought. So I'm going to give the plot, because it's such, it is, and we can't emphasize this enough, it is an important episode, especially of the original series. It's a very important episode because it sets up what's arguably the best Star Trek movie. But again, we'll get to that later. In terms of the plot, I'm going to give it, I'm going to go 8, because I thought it was quite good.
I'm going to match you with 8. I thought the exact same for 8 as well, because like you said, there was a nice few little things here where very good premise, very good idea, in a sense where like they often with Star Trek, they tend to, at least with the original series, they tend to go back instead of forwards, or go forward where they used to go forward, they kind of the alternate Earths. It's where like they go to somewhere where the mafia have taken control, or like it's the Romans but it's modern age type of deal. Whereas this one is like the first time they properly try to rewrite future history for us to try and to kind of fill in the blanks with. And they did kind of, I know they did a good bit of that in the first season of The Next Generation, and then they just kind of stopped doing that because they know that shit ages quite quickly, you know. But at the same time, it paints a very different, a very good light of what this Star Trek universe is like. And like, as the case was, what happens if we did like start embracing and using science as radically as, like, say, the 50s and 60s? If the space race kept going, what would be the natural conclusion? Would be, you know, the penal ships we see in this episode in the 90s.
Yeah, something like that. I think you'd see a moon base by now. You probably would have seen an actual manned mission to Mars by now. But unfortunately, we haven't seen any of that.
Well, I'm much to the point that like acceleration of that like level of science would have grown to a conversation about genetic engineering, splicing, the genome project, all this sort of stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, there is still some parts of that, but we're not breeding super soldiers that we know of to the same extent that Star Trek thinks. So like I said, I think it's a strong start for this episode, I think.
Absolutely.
Next up then is setting. So again, we can probably apply perhaps to move the episode to this category, but there is some different sets we saw here. Obviously, we saw the inside of Botany Bay, quite open, has to be said. I like the way you can also include the kind of the dinner area in this as well. The kind of, I suppose you kind of call it conference hall, or, you know,
conference or mess. The officer's mess, maybe.
Yeah, potentially. And the way that was kind of laid out and arranged and configured, I think, was quite subtle. The fact that like MacGyver ended up being beside Khan was so fucking convenient, you know. But the way, even like the way that Kirk is like 90-degree angle as well, close as possible to Khan, it was very clever in that sense. Again, it's hard to kind of give setting a proper score on these old episodes because they had such like less to work with. But I think effectiveness, I think it was good. There wasn't an overarching kind of emotion to this episode, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, because in a way this is not the episode for that type of thing. Remember we had Balance of Terror, and they actually got the emotion across in lighting and in the way things were shot. They didn't do that in this episode, and it's probably because they didn't quite know what they were doing at this point. I know like certain things are shot out of sequence as well, and directors and writers just trying out different things for the crack. So I'm kind of inclined to give maybe a 7 to 7.5. What do you think, Jerry?
In terms of setting, you know, obviously we only had the one really, really new set, which was basically just a rehashed Enterprise set, to be perfectly honest, with a couple of beds and whatnot in it. But I thought they used all the sets to their advantage. You've got different angles from sick bay. You've got a different type of crew quarters, which was MacGyver's crew quarters. And then obviously the kind of the dining hall or the mess hall, whatever you want to call it, was used quite well. And then of course that was used for his sentencing is what it was used for. Then at the end, I thought it was. Listen, we're not going to be marking it 9 or 10. You know, I will meet you at 7. I wouldn't go any higher than 7.
7 it is then. So 7 for our setting. Next then I think is perhaps one of my big positives of this episode is the writing.
Mm-hmm.
So again, much of the point where like they did try and flesh out what like Star Trek's past, if you will, or our future would have been. Talking about this period, like, again, they would have eventually had the phrase eugenics by the time Wrath of Khan comes in, because then that word was essentially invented. It was a buzzword at that time. But you would have said genetically superior, or kind of words to that effect, the Supermen, proverbially. So you flesh out a lot of that. The way certain scenes are written, I really, really liked, but I'm going to give points in different categories for that. What did you think of the writing of this episode, Jerry?
I thought the writing was good. It certainly sets it up for what's to come.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it sets it up for what's to come, but you don't see what's to come. You know, you have no idea. Yeah. I thought the writing of Khan himself was fantastic. Just like that, Khan is very much a Boba Fett style character. Is that, yes, okay, we knew he was a dictator. We know he's genetically enhanced, but that's about all we know. We don't know much else than that. And he's still a very mysterious character. Even in the Wrath of Khan, he's a very mysterious character. So I thought it's those types of characters that I'm kind of drawn to when I see him, something like this, is that the immediate question that you have is, I want to know more about that person. And you don't find out. So you have to literally, your own brain has to fill in the blanks. So everyone's story is different, you know. So I thought the writing very, very good. I'm going to go 8 with this.
I'll meet you at 8. Because the one thing I was going to say about the writing was that I wasn't a fan of how. Now again, I know what they were trying to do. I know they were trying to like make a point about how, I think I mentioned at the time, about how hindsight can dilute a person's impact on history, and the fact that like Kirk, Scotty, and McCoy all start battling for Khan because of how such a powerful man he was. It's like, like, I see what you're trying to do, but it only works if, say, one person bats for them and you have the conversation. And the fact that Spock, being the Vulcan and the rationalist, going like, lads, what the fuck are you doing? You're all like,
what are you up to? Yeah,
you're sympathizing with a dictator.
It's kind of, now listen, you know, I'm not going to try and get into anything too political or anything here.
Yeah,
but it's kind of like how people see Trump. Yeah, in a sense that, you know, some people just blindly follow him, and then you've got rational people going, well, you know, he's a fucking liar. You know, he's done wrong. You know, he's committed fraud. You know, he's worked with the Russians, but yet you just won't see it. You can't see it. And it's kind of in the same sense of what they were going with Khan there. I'm assuming that Khan was written almost in the sense of, because this was written during the Cold War, you know, there was a lot of stuff going on with the USSR and Russia. I'd imagine that's how a lot of Americans, and especially the writers of the show, felt about normal, average, everyday Russian people in during the Cold War, that they just blindly followed the likes of Stalin and
Khrushchev at that point.
Khrushchev. Thank you. It would have been Khrushchev at the time. So yeah, it's very, very interesting to see, and it was I thought it was very, very well written.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think it, like, again, I perhaps not point in the kind of character aspect as well, because this is the only time they mention about how much they kind of like Khan. In the same way, it only comes up in conversation, as if like it was a taboo. But I think it would have been more effective if it was one person like being that kind of guy. If it would just stay with Scotty, for example, then it's unique to Scotty, and then Kirk can kind of like be the more diplomatic, democratic one of the lot, if you say, and just get a different point of view, because I think that would have been a more interesting conversation. But I see your point. I think they were trying to put in a bit of social commentary there, but didn't know how to, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, again, they were all learning at the time, so I don't blame them with that one. But yeah, it's still 8 is a strong shout. So next up then is acting. So very mixed bag for me, Jerry, but I'll value your thoughts here.
Okay, so let's kind of go with the guest stars first of all. I thought, obviously, Ricardo Montalban can do no wrong in my eyes.
No,
absolutely no wrong in my eyes. Absolutely fantastic in this episode. If we were just judging this episode on his acting ability, it would be a 10. But it's not going to get a 10 because we have others to judge by. MacGyver's wasn't very good.
Yeah,
just just wasn't very good. You know, the whole like it just didn't work for me. Just wasn't very good. I actually thought, in terms of acting, though, I thought that scene we were just talking about when you've got McCoy, Kirk, and Scotty having that discussion with Spock, I thought that was very well done, especially from the aspect of Spock, because he's almost like you're willing to say, lads, what the fuck he is up to here? This guy's a dictator, but he got it across really, really well. And I thought, especially in terms of the confrontations between Kirk and Khan as well, were really good. That kind of it was more, you know, all you had to do was look at their eyes. They were acting with their eyes. It wasn't to do with their facial expressions, just their eyes. I'm like, oh, lads, this is good. You know, I know we go on about Kirk and his overacting and whatnot, but there's a reason that he got the gig as Captain Kirk. There's a reason that he had such longevity, and even now, 60 years later, is still a serious actor, because he is that fucking good.
Yeah,
he really, really is. So I'd say I can't go 10, because it's just not going to happen. 8.5.
Okay, yeah, 8.5. I'm happy with.
What were you going to go? What were you going to go with?
I was going to go with 7.7 because 7.5 rather, because Uhura, Michelle, let the team down here a bit. Kirk is dead. It's just like, oh no. But I'm happy to acquiesce there, because another person we mentioned here, and a bit of the dark horse of this episode, is McCoy. Because I will mention the scene later on with himself and Khan, and the way he just like, there's a knife to my throat, and just like shown no fucking, like, the way he deals with that is very, very good. You rarely see like a good, like, proper McCoy being ballsy type of episode.
If he had showed any emotion there, he was dead.
Yeah,
he was absolutely dead. So he stayed calm, cool, collected. It absolutely worked, and you know, that was a great scene. Some really good scenes in this, I have to say. We're gonna have a hard time in terms of the scene category. We really are. But really, really, really good acting overall. You're gonna go 7.5. I said 8.5. Let's just meet in the middle and go 8.
Yep, I'm happy with that. I think that suits everyone down to the ground. So next up then is action. Slow build initially, but then we did get some action set pieces at the end. A little bit of, you know, the ship being taken over is a bit serious for all intents and purposes.
Absolutely.
Again, we will dock points for the stunt actors not even trying to hide themselves. But
that was terrible. That was terrible.
Careful.
The action was good.
Yes,
you know, the action was good, but the fact that they didn't even try and hide the fact that they didn't even look even remotely like Khan or Kirk, really, really bad. There was the other bit as well where Khan escapes from his cell and the red shirt goes fucking flying across the room.
That was great.
So that was really good as well. Again, you knew it wasn't Ricardo Montalban, but the fact that he had his back to us was absolutely fine. Just the right amount of action for this type of episode. I think if it was any more than that, would have been too much. I'm not going to go high with it though, because it's still original series action, you know, so it's not going to be very high. I'll go 7. Yeah, I was actually going to go 7 too. So yeah, I'm okay with that. We really agree with each other this so far. We haven't been contentious yet, so this is interesting. No, not yet. We'll see.
Not yet. We'll see. Next up then is effects. So I want to take one very big negative that really annoyed the fuck out of me in this episode, and it involves MacGyvers. So we mentioned this trick that that the original series does all the time with lighting, and to kind of get across the mood of certain characters. So like if something's dark and tense, they do the kind of the screen where they focus in on the eyes. It's a real kind of like Western trick, basically, like that, exactly. So now on the opposite side, when they want to get over someone as like kind of innocent or naive or whatever it is, they do a lot of bloom, where they kind of like get the eyes to shine out and the hair to bloom out and all this. MacGyver's was literally overexposed in fucking
every fucking time. Every scene.
Yeah.
And it was too much. It was far too much.
Yeah.
You say to yourself, if they'd done it twice, I would have allowed for it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, because you're showing her in that kind of real innocent the light in our eyes type of situation, but they did it for nearly every one of her scenes. I cannot abide by that. It wasn't very good.
No,
it really wasn't.
If you pardon the pun, it really did take the shine off the episode, because every time we went to MacGyver's, it was a case of like, oh, fucking Jesus Christ, stop blinding me with the light. We know.
Like, who are you trying to be? Fucking J.J. Abrams? Give it over with your stupid eyes.
Lens flare. Wow.
Yeah.
Fuck off. But it was a case where, like there was one scene where it happens, I think, in the actual when Khan's taking over the ship, right? And like they're all sitting around the desk, and like, you know, it cuts to Khan, then it cuts to MacGyver's with the fucking blue, and it cuts back into the room being normal. Like, I was expecting the massive spotlight to be on her at the time. It was like, where the fuck is this light coming from? Like, you know. Well, like, yeah. Now, granted, I think there were some like kind of neat little effects here and there in the episode, but I still think that the bloom was egregious. Like, it was
too much. So I certainly wouldn't score this high, and that, unfortunately, that does take a great amount of points away from this. So in terms of effects, I'm gonna go 4, because I thought that was terrible.
Literally about to say 4 as well. Yeah. I think it's actually the weakest point of the show for me. But
yes,
I have thoughts later on. We'll see what you think. Next up, again, it's been an episode, a category which I've been pleasantly surprised with in this original series watch along, which is the score. Like, we know that the music repeats. I know they use the same like ones each time.
Yeah.
But being tactical about certain music really worked in this episode. Yes. Whereas,
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing for me was, and this, they use that a lot in these types of episodes. That's absolutely fine. I like that. But what I don't know whether you picked up on it, but it was the scene where McCoy had the knife to his throat.
Yes.
The scalpel to his throat. And just before, like during that, there was a beat. There was a beat, and it was just a beat. It was boom, boom.
Yes, it was a heart monitor. Yeah.
Boom. Now I know you say that's a heart monitor, but the fact that was very cleverly put in.
Yes.
That was very cleverly put in, because boom, 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 and even when McCoy goes over to the panel and says, "Jim, we have a patient here who wants to talk to the captain," and it still keeps playing boom, boom, and then boom, ba-dum, da, 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 da. And I'm like, oh yeah, all over that, absolutely all over that. I'm gonna go 8 with that, because I thought just that one scene was gonna give me that mark alone, because I love how every single Star Trek original series episode starts with the same music right at the very beginning, just right at the start. And it's fantastic. I love that music, but they use the same music in every episode, but it's how strategic they are with it. Some shite.
Yes.
And there's no denying it. They just didn't do it properly. With this, they absolutely got the full effect of that one score that they have. And it was brilliant. And especially tying in with that boom, 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 boom. I'm like, you fucking nailed it with that. Like, absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's using what you have there. And again, the one note I would have for this, and it's purely from my kind of like power of hindsight type of deal, where like they start off with the kind of the not necessarily sinister music, but creepy music starting off. So, like, it's like like just set the tone. That's fair enough. But with the way the episode goes, they do kind of fall into a false sense of security with Khan and his people. So you could have the music to reflect that, where it's all a little bit jitty starting off, and then it slowly gets there's a little bit more unsettling as time goes on. But that's all hindsight. That's what they would do now if they wanted to. They're going to get across to the audience that we're all having a good time until we're not, and that's a minor thing. But again, I don't think they actually like put really a step wrong in this episode. So I was gonna go 8 to 8.5 myself, quite honestly. So cool. I'm happy to go with 8 if you are, Jerry.
Yeah, I'll go with 8. Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Okay then. So next up then is our 3 more interesting categories: scenes. So for me, very strong episode on scenes.
Absolutely. There was. I'm not just going to single out one scene here. I'm going to single out a few scenes. Number 1, you've got McCoy with the knife.
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. Very, very tense, but kept us cool.
That was my personal favorite from that.
Yeah. You've got the many meetings of Khan and Kirk, and again, it's all about the eyes. It wasn't
Yes.
about what they said. It wasn't about body language. It was about just the eyes and how suspicious they were of each other. Absolutely fantastic. The scene for me, like as much as I loved that McCoy scene, the scene for me was the three laughing fuckers and Spock. I thought was fantastic. To me, this is the probably the highest score I give for this episode. Anyway, this is getting a 9 from me.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so what was that you liked about the scene with the three amigos? Was it because they were scoffing at the fact that there was a dictator?
The fact that exactly. That's like somebody laughing about, Jesus, wasn't Hitler a great bit of crack? No. He wasn't a great bit of crack. That's the point. That's the point that Spock was trying to get across. Lads, this was a dictator. This was a guy who took over like 40% of the planet.
Yeah.
So
no, it's not 4 million people. Yeah,
exactly. No, he wasn't a fun guy. He really fucking wasn't. And the fact that they're literally wasn't he fucking great crack? No, he wasn't. So that to me was absolutely fantastic. Just to see obviously Spock is not emotional, so he's not showing emotion, but the surprise, he still showed surprise. Surprise without emotion is extremely difficult, and Leonard Nimoy pulled it off. Absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I think these are definitely getting a what did I say? I said 9, didn't I?
You said 9.
Yeah, 9. Yeah, I 9 from me. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. But I'm interested to see what you think.
Well, like I said, I think this episode is full of those kind of very important scenes that you don't realize are important until the movie comes out. So they have like unintentionally set up things quite well. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a few episodes like this in the original series where you're thinking like, oh, they could have made a movie of that. Like, again, it's been done to death now since Alex Kurtzman got his fucking hands on it. But the mirror episodes were like, you could have had an episode in a movie in the mirror universe, and it would have been a lot better job than what we're getting now. But that's a separate issue. In the same way, like The City on the Edge of Forever, 2 episodes where they're deliberately leaving for special occasions. 2 fantastic setting off points for movies. You could argue The Voyage Home is that, but I mean, it's far more of a comedy knees up more than anything else. But even then, like there's certain episodes that set up really, really well for that sort of thing. And this, they didn't realize at the time if they were making movies or not. They wouldn't have known, to be fair. Like the whole zeitgeist had changed by the time movies were coming out, so they wouldn't have known. But this really has set up things superbly well, because they thought this was just like a little one and done, going like, oh, we found what happens if we find Hitler in space. Well, this is what happens, and there you go. We move along. But the fact that like they had set up the dynamic between Khan and Kirk that well without even really realizing it kind of shows that there is some level of talent in that production. They just didn't, they were not quite there at harnessing it, but they were very, very close. So in that sense, I think from that point alone, I'm actually going to agree with your 9, because I was going to argue that I'm going to actually argue now in the next category about that scene you're talking about. So character wise, obviously Khan, holy shit, like he's the star of the show, no doubt. McCoy, very strong episodes,
fantastic for McCoy. I think Kirk should get a mention here as well, just because of those Kirk and Khan scenes. That absolutely fantastic. I'm going to give an honorable mention to Leonard Nimoy as Spock, because I thought he played the role, especially in this, because he just simply didn't understand why they were pretty much glorifying a fucking dictator, and he didn't get it. And it was played so well because, again, Vulcan is unemotional, trying to convey his surprise, which is an emotion, to 3 people who are laughing about a dictator. And I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. So he was definitely up there with McCoy and Kirk, and especially Khan. Absolutely brilliant. But you said you were going to argue with me on this. So
I was, because I think when you look at this episode, like obviously my 3 positives I mentioned there were Khan and McCoy and Spock to a smaller extent. Obviously, the MacGyver characters was a bit of a waste in a sense, because
definite letdown. Yes, definitely
letdown. But the biggest letdown actually is Kirk, because again, we've seen from the couple of episodes we've seen him being heroic Kirk. We've seen him being like the sensible, smart one, and for the run of the kind of original series, he is more or less that. He's straight and narrow. He does play things by the book. In this one, he doesn't. It's kind of a case of like, we understand it's a stalemate. Like he hasn't won, but neither has can. It's a draw, basically. But the way to resolve a draw is not to lead them on a planet where they can eventually control. You know what I mean? Like that's not what you do. And I think that is just like, now granted, that is explored a lot in the movie, which we'll talk about in the final category. But for me, like, it is a completely incorrect use of Kirk there, in a sense where James Kirk, as written in the rest of the series and in other episodes, were pivotal episodes where he goes up against characters like this. I'm thinking of even the one, it's not a great example, but the episode he comes up against Apollo, for example, goes up against actual Roman gods, or at least people pretend to be Roman gods. Yeah. He doesn't, like, you know, try and like bat, you know, going like, oh yeah, well, we're going to send you on a planet. No, he's going up against the fucking gods. He's going to be smart about it, you know.
I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here, right?
Sure.
In terms of Kirk, I totally understand what you're saying. It's almost like he changed in this episode, and you kind of trying to say to yourself, why? Why did he change? I think there's a few reasons, okay? Number one, he's met somebody that is absolutely his match. 100% his match, right? That's number one. Number two, and it's before he ever even spoke to Khan. What is, first and foremost, okay, he's the captain of the flagship, the Federation, the Enterprise, okay? But what is he most known for in Star Trek?
For Kirk, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, how long have you got? In a sense, like, he's kind of one of the bigger deals. Like, in terms of the original series, what did he do nearly every second season? He went off with a different woman, didn't he? He went off with every fucking woman he could put his hands on. And the fact that this woman, Danvers, not Danvers, I should say, McGaver. I'm sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Waver.
It's gone. The fact that she is so besotted with a comatose Khan, I think that has that true as well, because you saw his facial expression when he's looking at her, when she's looking at Khan, and I think that kind of threw him as well. So it's kind of like, well, this is a ladies' man coming along. Not only is a ladies' man, he's somebody who could best me in a game of wits, in a fight. You know, he's very much almost a jealousy thing when it comes to Khan. That's what I feel. It's not just simply, oh, they wrote him differently and he's just you know, they made a mistake in terms of writing. I don't think it's that. I think he knows this guy could potentially be his nemesis. That's why he puts him on the planet that is worse than it's hell. You know what I mean? It's a hell planet. That's how bad it is. And he knew they wouldn't be able to do anything with that planet because there's nothing to do with the planet. But in terms of Kirk in this episode, I don't think it was badly written. I don't think they wrote it wrong. I just think this is him meeting somebody that is every bar of him.
Yes,
he is the arrogant one. He is the ladies' man. He is the one who is the smart one, and he's just met somebody who is him essentially, and that's why he's different, because he's met somebody that is his like alter ego.
He's equal.
And is equal, absolutely, and he just can't take that. He's not happy about that, so that's why he does what he does.
Okay, fair. Yeah, do you know what? I see I do see your point there, and maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on the.
Yes.
I think I'm maybe being a bit too harsh in terms of the conclusion that Kirk makes himself, where he just goes like, "Well, you fought well. Let's give you a planet," type of deal. Yeah. Well, it was the case of like we have decided it is very much like he actually did make a point of it by saying that, like, you know, Kirk himself is going like, "This is what I've decided. I'm throwing out these charges, but I'm putting you on a stranded planet. Yeah, it's up to you to survive. We know you will." But you're in a remote part of space, you've no spacefaring technology. In theory, you shouldn't be able to get off this planet. We all obviously know that was a massive mistake on Kirk's part, but we'll get to that in the next category. So, scoring wise, then, what did you reckon for character, Jerry?
I'm gonna go 8, just because I thought this was a really, really strong category. You've got really, really strong performances from both Ricardo Montalban, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelly. Absolutely fantastic, and especially as good as Montalban is, DeForest Kelly in this episode was one of the stars. Yeah, in this episode, absolutely 100%. Fantastic, and I think he's very much overlooked a lot of the time. So for him to in this one, he was fantastic. So I'm gonna go 8.
Yeah. I'm happy to go with that because I was going to make a point for MacGyver, the way she was written.
MacGyver.
No slight on the actor at all. It's literally just the way she was written to
it
be.
Was it was just the way it was written, the way it was filmed. It wasn't her fault. It was just a character.
Yeah, exactly. And then we reached to the final category, consequences. Do you want me to do the honors, or will you? Or which
I tell you what, I took the Borg one, so you take this one.
10. Fucking massive fucking 10. This literally becomes.
Can we not go 11?
I mean, if 11 was available,
if 11 was available, we would give 11. This absolutely gets a 10 for the fact that it sets up what is arguably the best Star Trek movie that was ever made.
Yes, absolutely.
As simple as that. And I do say arguably because a lot of people do argue over this fact. They don't argue it against any other original series movie. They argue it against the likes of First Contact and Generations because I thought they were fantastic. But you know, I don't think anything in any movie that's been made in terms of Star Trek movies cuts the mustard when it comes to Wrath of Khan. It's just amazing.
I think
the writing, everything.
The best non-Star Trek movie in a sense, where like it's not written from a Star Trek point of view. It's written to be a good like movie. It's a good like it's a good nemesis plot. It's a case of like a good rivalry plot. Let's just say
good rivalry plot. You've got your hero saving the day at the end. Sacrificing his life. You've got really outstanding performances. From Ricardo Montalban, from Spock, from actually the four that we mentioned in this episode are four of the standouts in the movie. Which now another one would be in the movie would obviously be Chekhov. Absolutely fantastic in the movie. But yeah, the four, so McCoy and Spock and Kirk and Khan in the movie as in the episode were absolutely fantastic. Just overall, there's no way you can't mark this a 10 for consequences because it is up there with the Borg and Q-Who and finding the Borg. So absolutely 100% agree. 10 out of 10. Yeah,
it has to be. I mean, like I said, I mentioned like kind of my criticisms for the Kirk character in the last session, in the last category there was because of how much in hindsight this was a massive mistake on Kirk's part. Like this is not something any other like ship captain would have done. They would have brought these people into a starbase and they would have been under lock and key until they decide what to do with them. But Kirk understood, or at least in a way, kind of the way the warrior in this case. That he mentioned the Milton quote was very appropriate. Better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. That is what Kirk was thinking. It's because like I'm not going to be able to lock these up. These are not going to be able to be locked up forever. No matter which way you go, they're going to rule. They are born to rule, quite literally. So I have to kowtow enough to them to do that. But again, the issue they had was that for one, they didn't realize that system was going to go supernova, which meant that relatively hospitable planet was going to go turn into a desert planet, right? They didn't realize that was going to happen. And number two, they didn't realize that somebody at some point was going to land on that spaceship and give them a chance to escape. So those two things never came into Kirk's mind. Should they have? You argue, yes, maybe you should have kind of the contingencies. But at the time, you could say they didn't really get across because everyone's cool and calm and collected in this original series, But in a way, you'd say this is where they start examining it. At least in the Wrath of Khan, Nicholas Meyer, I think who was the director, made a very good point of actually exploring the consequences of the original series. Like, as you said, you mentioned that Kirk was a serial womanizer, or at least that was a perception of him. I think he's not as bad as when you actually do watch the entire series, but he comes up, that happens a lot in the show compared to, say, The Next Generation, where Picard is frigid comparatively. And the fact is that, like, you have Nicholas Meyer going like, well, like Kirk was the captain of the Wild Wild West. He was like a reckless abandon, and there was no consequences from episode to episode. That was one of Meyer's kind of recollections of the show, which is true. Like, it was an episodic show. Kirk just moved on to the next adventure from that point on. So the framing device of what happens if someone does come back from Kirk's past, something from the original series, something you do know Kirk kind of fucked up with, that is kind of it, isn't it? That is the framing device for
exactly. Yeah,
the can.
I 100% agree with you there. And what a fuck up it was.
Yes,
Potentially,
huge.
because you have to look at it from this point of view. Whatever about him escaping and getting revenge on Kirk, the consequences of him escaping are far worse than him just coming to kill Kirk. Definitely, the consequences are, if he had have taken the Reliant and left Federation space or wherever it may be, and using his superior knowledge, superior brain, everything, taking that, and it's a power. The Reliant wasn't just a standard Federation science vessel. It was nothing like that. It was effectively a warship with the amount of weapons it had. This was a time where they were fighting the Klingons constantly, so they had to have all these ships that were quite powerful. He could have simply gone and taken that ship and conquered a number of systems, brought people on board, created armies, gotten more ships. Could have been a serious threat to not just the Federation, but the Alpha Quadrant. So the consequences could have been huge. And there's only one person to blame for that, and would have been Kirk.
Yeah,
absolutely. Exactly. Because as I say, I believe, not because he just simply made a mistake or he wanted to give him a chance, because of his arrogance. Absolute arrogance. He wanted this guy gone, and he wanted him. He didn't want.
Did it his way as well.
Exactly. He wanted it his way. He wanted the one. He wanted to be the one to make this decision. He wanted to be the one to say, "I said that you have to go to this planet." So basically, his way of being in control. And that's exactly what it was. And it almost cost him, the crew of the Enterprise, and possibly the Federation. But thankfully, because of Spock, we're okay.
We're good. And Spock was fine in the end as well. Trust us on that one.
Yes.
But yeah,
but you'll have to see why. You'll have
to see you next year for the next movie. So that episode leaves us then with a scoring of 77 out of 100. So let me bring you through the order. Bringing up the rear is the Voyager Conspiracy, rating 59. And not too far behind is the Arsenal of Freedom from Next Generation, that's 59.5. Then we have a double whammy of original series episodes at 11th and 10th in the Enterprise Incident first, and then the Doomsday Machine. Then we've got two episodes on joint 8th in the Battle and Conspiracy, both ranking 73. And then smack bang in the middle of the list right now is Space Seed in 7th with 77 points. You can tell what the average number there is, folks. Then still untroubled in the top 6 is Q Who from Next Generation at 80. The Balance of Terror for the original series, still our highest ranked episode at 81.5. Then the Star Trek Enterprise episode, the Andorian Incident at 83, sharing third place with The Skin of Evil still unchallenged, the top 2. The Best of Both Worlds, 90.5, and In the Pale Moonlight from Deep Space Nine at 91. It's starting to flesh out a little bit here, this list, Jerry. Are you happy with a score of 77 for Space Seed? It's smack bang in the middle of our list so far.
I think so. I think that's fair. It beats a majority of the other original series episodes that we've got, except for
Balance of Terror.
Balance of Terror. And in fairness, it's going to take a lot for an original series episode to beat that. It really is, because it's a fantastic episode. So, I think 77 is fair. I think we certainly fairly, I think it was 9 out of 10 categories we agreed on. There's only one that we didn't agree on, I think. So I thought we did well with that one. But I'm looking forward to, I've actually been enjoying the original series, which is quite a surprise for me. I don't generally like stuff that's this old.
There you go.
But it is quite good. Like a friend of mine's been saying to me recently, would I not try out Doctor Who? I'm like, I don't know. I have so many different genres I watch. I'm like, another one. And she was like, oh, no, just start off with the newer stuff. But because I've been liking the original series so much, I'm saying to myself, maybe I would just start with the new Doctor Who's and go from there, because they're kind of made around about the same time, a few years apart. But it was because of Star Trek that the likes of Doctor Who thrived.
Yes.
So I'm definitely liking it, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. So, indeed, what is the next on our trip? Well, it is actually the last of our original series watch-alongs, and it's going to be a springboard then into our next arc of episodes that we're going to be tuning into. So, again, we mentioned a couple of really exciting episodes like Mirror Mirror and the City on the Edge of Tomorrow. Are we going for one of those episodes? No, we're going for Tribbles. The Trouble with Tribbles. That's where we're going for this one. So the reason being, we are going to be doing an arc of comedy episodes in Star Trek, which are pearls, let's just say, in the sea of Star Trek episodes. But some of them can be good, some of them maybe not so exciting and hilarious, but they tried. Is the main thing. But we have cherry picked what we think are some of the best ones for the next set, and we're starting off then with I suppose the source of the comedy Star Trek episode, The Trouble with Tribbles, and very excited for this one, I have to say, because somehow almost like the legend of this episode is actually funnier than the episode itself, in my opinion.
I think so. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, I am familiar with the episode, but I'm only familiar with it because of Trials and Tribulations from Deep Space Nine, because the majority of Trouble with Tribbles is in this episode. So I am looking forward to it. And it's going to be good to see some comedy episodes now. So I'm looking forward to that.
For sure, absolutely. And that is what you can look forward to, folks, in our next episode. So coming very soon to the Nerds Roast channel will be our watch along of the Trouble with Tribbles, which we obviously will be inviting you to watch along with us as well. But for now, that is the end of our episode of the Best of All Worlds. Jerry, thank you very much for your company again tonight. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure as always.
Indeed. And for you watching at home, do you agree with our scoring? Do you think 77 is worthy of Khan, or should have been more? Should have been less? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And we'd love to hear from you what kind of episodes you want us to cover in the future. We are always open to suggestions in terms of future arcs. And we certainly will need one after all the comedy. We need some hard, serious realism after all that. So by all means, throw them down your suggestions in the comments below. And of course, as ever, do all the usual YouTube stuff, like liking and sharing and telling your friends about this podcast. And if you don't, we're going to get Khan after you. And he cuts people. Or seduce people. He might seduce you and then cut. I'm not sure which way he goes. But
you know what? People are into some weird stuff nowadays. He'd probably do both.
He'd probably do both, to be fair. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he saw it coming, didn't he, in fairness? But yeah, that's it. And until then, lads, until the next episode of Best of All Worlds.
Cool.